So, mindful habits for resilient children to move from chaos to calm. So, you can see the children on the left-hand side of the screen, distracted, left out, angry, anxious, sad, scared, frightened, you name it. I'm sure you know the emotions, you recognize the experiences on the left-hand side. And then with mindfulness training, we're simply moving to more calm, focused, connected, balanced, happy, and resilient side. So how does mindfulness cultivate these attributes in children? I'm going to cover some exercises from the top 4 essential life skills that we look at within the context of the OVO Mindful Kids Coach course. So, as you know, and you've probably seen, there's a load of science behind what I'll be covering tonight. So although the exercises seem profoundly simple, simple seems to be what is making the difference. So just to let you know, there's over 9,000 studies, and just really quickly having a squiz through them, we will be sending out links in the email that you'll get post the webinars. So just moving through that, there's one there about how mindfulness helps memory, verbal reasoning, and concentration. It helps stop the scary stuff. It benefits brains and behavior. So it's actually changing the functionally, instructionally in the brain. So a school replacing detention with mindfulness meditation, and it's having astounding results. And also helping impulsivity, so for obesity, for gaming, and managing social media. Nigel Latter, for those of you in New Zealand, you'll know Nigel Latter is a TV psychologist who works extensively with children, and he is adamant about mindfulness being the most important thing to teach all New Zealand children, or all school children, in terms of helping mental health outcomes. So the situation out there in today's world is a fast-paced, digitally dependent world. Children are being bombarded constantly with things that grab their attention, and a lot of these things are built to be addictive. So the children can't help but keep craving them. The environments that they're in are quite often overstimulating, and so it's very easy for them to get out of balance, and they're spending less and less time in balance. So feeling that sense of calm and just balance inside their bodies. So it is a very difficult environment to be growing up. If you just imagine yourself in today's environment with this fast-paced dependence on technology, where people are in a state of partial attention so much of the time, not only the children but also the parents. And I know myself, it's a very, very difficult job. And we have mindfulness helps provide an antidote to this. So what is mindfulness? So I keep it really, really simple within the context of what we're teaching children. So mindfulness is really just about doing something and knowing that we're doing it. So noticing what's happening right here, right now, and cultivating an attitude of kindness so that we stop judging ourselves, because the judgment puts filters on what we see. And if our perspective on what we see in ourselves is filtered and not real, then it's more difficult to make changes and to respond moment to moment what is happening. So it is really just an ability to pay attention to what's going on in the moment. But like I said, just teaching the kids these exercises that we use in the course, actually they don't really need to know too much about mindfulness. They just practice doing it. So it becomes less theoretical and less cognitive, something that they think about, and more just something that they do. And so what kids are saying, what we're hearing kids saying, they're happier. That's not our intention to make kids happier. We're happy to let them experience all the diversity of emotions, but as an outcome of mindfulness, kids go, I'm happier, I make better choices, they can pay attention. I've had some kids, one young boy I worked with, and he was always getting in trouble for not paying attention, and he was just rapt when we'd given him some exercises to learn how to pay attention. He's always getting in trouble, but no one had ever taught him how to pay attention. Not so angry, I like myself more. Life is better, I feel better. So these simple exercises create changes in the brain, create changes in the body's internal environment, and allow the children to down-regulate the amygdala, the flight or fight response system in their brains. So profound results happening with simple exercises. But how do children learn to be mindful? It's really important that they have mindful role models around, and that's why we like to help adults cultivate mindfulness and have a mindfulness practice themselves, which doesn't mean you have to be meditating for half an hour a day. It's simple, regular pausing and things you can do and perspectives in order to start living mindfully. Mindful exercise is short and often with children so that they really become ingrained and habitual. The earlier they instill these habits, these mindful habits, these ways of being in the world, the better the outcomes. And then allowing children to spend time in mindful environments. Now, one of the articles that we viewed just as we were skimming through them above was about children in getting a reprieve. They were practicing in a high-risk school in England. They were practicing mindfulness, and this was giving them a break from the stress and the trauma of their life. So allowing kids to experience a mindful environment, a calm, balanced environment for even just a short amount of time allows them to realize and reset and get an understanding of what normal feels like, of what being calm feels like, so engaging in the parasympathetic nervous system. But so let's just have a little bit more of a look there. So the first exercise that we come to, the first big essential skill is the ability to aim and sustain attention. Now, the reason this is so important is that if children don't realize they have a choice over where they put their attention, then their attention is up for grabs for whoever enters their life in any which way, whether it's through social media, technology, gaming, whether it's their peer group, their parents, their teachers, whatever stimuli they're being bombarded with has the ability to grab their attention. So it's incredibly important that they get to choose and recognize that it is a choice as to what to pay attention to. Because where their attention goes, their life will follow. So if all their attention is going towards perhaps an addictive game, then that is the area, that is the brain connections they're making, that is the chemistry they're flooding their body with in order to neurons that fire together. So the more they're doing a certain thing, the more they want to do it, and the bigger that area grows in their brain. So it's incredibly important for kids to be able to recognize this. And we also teach, once you've directed your attention, then how do you sustain it on a certain task or object of your attention? So it's a huge learning for children. We start off really simple with these young children of just helping them with, I'll show you an example of an incredibly simple exercise that can help build this mindfulness muscle. So it can help allow children, whoops, sorry, I'm just allowing people into this webinar. So we call it mind gym, and just by focusing your mind on one thing, and then when your mind wanders, gently bringing it back to the object, and doing that each day helps build the mindful muscle. So you can see this little picture of a muscle doing some bicep curls. So the idea is, if we were to do a bicep curl, if we just had our arm out straight, we wouldn't be building the bicep muscle. But as we bring it in and then we release it, so our mind wanders and we bring it back, and we're building the mindfulness muscle, the muscle of attention. So simple exercises of just allowing your child to direct their attention, just getting them to pay attention to a certain object. Obviously, we do these exercises in more detail in the course, but just looking at that object, the mind wanders, bringing it back. A really simple exercise. All the magic of mindfulness happens simply in this noticing that the mind has wandered and bringing it back. And so the main area we're going to spend time on today, because we are looking primarily at mindfulness for to build resilience, the main area of our category of essential skill that we'll look at is the ability to achieve balance. Now, when we're talking about balance and mindfulness, we're talking about internal balance. So being in a state where we are engaging what controls the state that your body's in, the state of arousal or excitement or stress, anxiety, calm, is your autonomic nervous system. And that just kind of operates in the background. And so that maintains your heart rate at a normal level, your blood pressure, your thinking, your rational thinking, everything's just ticking along perfectly fine, and your body's in a state of homeostasis. Everything's operating normally. You feel good, your thinking is clear, and that is when you are in the green zone, we call it, or the parasympathetic nervous system is engaged. Now, the more time we spend in that zone, the more able we are to recognize, or children are able to recognize, a state of balance or dysnormality, of calmness in their life. So resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. So the ability to go from that calm state. We oftentimes, in times of stress or chaos in our lives, and sometimes with nothing external, we can get out of balance and into our flight or fight mode, our emergency response mode. And this is scientifically, we call it the sympathetic mode. And once that is firing, we're in the red zone and we're feeling stressed and anxious. And so how to go from being in that zone to get back into that balanced feeling of normality, and to be able to have that elasticity of moving in and out of that, and having some control over that process is the key to resilience in our children. Now, let me explain what happens when we move from the balance state into this flight or fight mode, where we're engaging our parasympathetic, our emergency response system. Now, we do this in response to danger. Our brain, our survival brain, has been built that when we are stressed, we respond like we did in prehistoric times with a response called flight or fight. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this. So in this case, And in the case of prehistoric times, the stressor could have been a saber-toothed cat. And as you can see, the effects that this has when we feel the result of this dangerous situation. So we might have a racing heart, racing thoughts. Our rational thinking switches off. We basically disengage the rational part of our brain, the top part of our brain, in response to stress. So I'm not sure if many of you seen the hand model of stress, Dan Siegel. You can Google him. He's an amazing a psychologist, and he uses this hand model to teach children. So this is the model of the brain, and this is our brainstem, the back of the brain here, and our primitive brain, that just keeps us alive, is in this base here. And then we have the limbic brain, which is our emotional brain, and then over the top there we have our rational brain, our thinking brain, that can make good, wise decisions. And this idea of when we are in flight or fight, we're really firing with this primitive part of the brain that's saying, run away, fight, you're in danger. And it pumps and it pumps, and it makes us feel emotion of maybe stress or anger. And what happens is that gets so strong that we can call it flipping the lid. So this part of our brain, the rational thought, disengages and becomes disconnected. So the wiring between these parts of the brain is no longer strong. So when children are in this state of flight or fight, when they're stressed, they're not able to see clearly, they're not able to be reasoned with. They are just reacting on the survival part of their brain. So with mindfulness, three things happen. Repetitive mindfulness practices can down-regulate the firing of this part of the brain, so it becomes less reactive. 2 is that we can help children realize that this response system is normal just by talking them through. So when they're feeling, when they can start to proactively notice themselves going into the stress mode, they can understand, they can pat themselves on the back and go, well done, you're a human being. You're starting to feel all the things you're meant to feel in response to a dangerous, life-threatening situation. You're engaging your body's emergency response system, and it works really, really well. And in those maybe 1% of times that it is actually danger and you need to run or fight, you'll be leading the pack. So well done. But giving the children the ability to understand this means that sometimes they can go, okay, although I'm feeling all of this in my body, it's not actually an emergency. So we teach using a slide around how scary is it? So is it really a saber-toothed tiger, or is it just a maths test and it's not actually dangerous, but it's still engaging, it's still activating our emergency response system? So can we just reassure ourselves that that's normal and allow it to switch off or not fully respond in that way? It may just be, like I say, not a life-threatening situation. So getting children to make that call early before they flip their lid. It might just be that mum is leaving them at school in the early days or whatever, or mum's leaving you or dad's leaving for whatever reason, and they start to see this as a dangerous situation, and just to be able to reassure themselves before they flip their lid. Now, once they've flipped their lid, and usually you can tell, then there is no use reasoning with them because they've lost that rational part of the brain. So this is where mindfulness can be really good. A wonderful technique is based upon the acronym of RAIN, where we simply just is recognizing the feeling you are experiencing, and getting the children to name it. So even they may start doing this with you prompting them, you can model it to them as well. I do that all the time, letting children know I'm feeling anger now. So showing them this by modeling. And so they might just, for example, say, I'm feeling angry, and then allowing the feeling just to be there and to understand it will pass, just like the rain. So not to then get stressed because they're angry, or get angry because they're angry and they know, oh my gosh, I'm not allowed to be angry, because that is just going to escalate it and keep them in that state of flight or fight, of emergency response. And this I is where the real magic happens, and this can be tracked with neuroscience, where they're actually just checking when people do this technique, when they turn away from their thinking and start noticing, experiencing sensations in their body, then all the neurotransmitters and the adrenaline and cortisol that are released in response to stress start reducing. And that is purely just by getting out of this primitive part of the brain, by noticing where we feel this stress, this anger in this boy's example, in our body. So is a chest tight, or are we feeling our muscles filling with adrenaline? So noticing that and getting out of the loop thinking of, oh my gosh, why did they do that? They must hate me. They've stolen my toy, or whatever little narrative is in their mind. They can get away from the thinking and just start noticing the sensations in their body. This will help drop the stress result. And it can be as simple, believe it or not, as just feeling their feet on the ground. So just working through this, obviously it takes practice time and time again to catching in the moment, and just working it through with the children until it starts becoming habitual. Now the N is for non-identify. So you are not the emotion. So we don't want to start having the wording around, I am angry. Just I'm noticing some anger. There's some anger landing on me at the moment. Just like with the weather can be stormy and then it can pass. It's just coming and then it's moving through. The research shows the average emotion would last 90 seconds if we didn't attach any thinking to it. So it is our thinking that keeps this this stress response on. And majority of us, ourselves as adults as well as children, are in this state of chronic stress. So it's really important to start one, noticing how it feels to be in balance, noticing when there is some stress or in the body or difficult feelings, and noticing that we can allow it to pass by just disengaging, so just moving away from the thinking part of the brain, so the thought processes, and just allowing that emotion to do what it is there to do and just to pass through. So I hope that makes sense. I have had some, anecdotally, just some incredible reports on how this has worked, and seen it in kids, where we've worked with anger management, and even just getting them to feel their feet on the ground and wiggle their toes gets them out of that loop thinking long enough for the cerebral cortex, the top part of the brain, to come back on and help that rational thinking re-engage. And that's when we can start looking at, what do we need? What do you need to do right now? Do you need to leave the room, and get perspective then? Remember, there's no use trying to get perspective while they're still in that flight or fight mode. And other ways we can do this by getting people to move out of their thinking into their body. Also breath. Breath is a wonderful way of engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, so getting us back into balance. So when we're out of balance, stressed, overwhelmed, or whatever, allowing our children to realize that by being conscious of, well, by employing different breathing methods can help to change the chemistry within the body, so reduce the firing of the neurotransmitters that causes stress. And well, the way we usually work with children, particularly young children, is not drawing their attention to breath, but we use a visual. So it is actually getting them to think of the visual, which that visual is helping them to change their breathing. So in this case is this gorgeous exercise called the hot chocolate breath. You can allow the children first to actually do it real with a cup of hot chocolate, or just to visualize. So holding the hand in front, imagine they're holding a lovely warm mug of hot chocolate. Now inhaling through the nose and imagining you're smelling that chocolatey scent. So it's quite good to do it once, and then they can draw on it whenever they need it and in any time of stress. And you can talk them through it. You can say, okay, let's just do the hot chocolate breath. And then exhaling slowly through the lips as if they're cooling the hot chocolate down. So this encourages the child to slow their breathing, and then also to extend the exhale, and extending the exhale, nice slow exhale calms that nervous system, the autonomic nervous system down. So we're running out of time, so I won't go into too much depth with these exercises. Another way is to this exercise here, you can read through it yourselves, but just using the abdominal breathing. And in this case, you can pop a teddy bear, a toy, or a book on the tummy. It's a great one to use at night, and then just breathing in, and as they breathe in, the tummy expands and the teddy goes up. As they breathe out, the teddy falls down. So they're just getting that lovely rhythmic breathing. The abdominal breathing obviously also engages the parasympathetic, the rest and digest part of the brain, which is exactly what we need to get the balance back. So yes, so that area of our teaching, the balance area, we have so many exercises that you can use and practice with your children you live or work with, in order to teach them how, when they get out of balance, how to notice that and how to come back into balance. Connection, obviously with technology, with a fast-paced life, a real human interaction and connection is being eroded. So it's really important with our mindfulness teaching to actually help children develop these pro-social skills, and to realize that what they do impacts others, and what other people do impacts them. And so that we are all interconnected, and to to cultivate empathy and compassion. Because, you know, connection is just so vital, real human connection. I'm not talking about how many friends I have on Facebook. And eye contact is something that is just becoming less and less common. People are looking down at devices and connecting through devices. So it gives us mindfulness gives us a wonderful opportunity. And in our course, we have so many different exercises to help children recognize the interconnection between them and others. Here's just a little teaching we use, this gorgeous little slide. Our illustrator, Rebecca Ballara, you'll find her work on Journey to Wellness on Instagram. She's amazing. She has done all of these gorgeous illustrations for us, so I'm very thankful for that. So this one here, compassion and connection. So it's a simple teaching. So when children see another child upset, angry, stressed, instead of judging that child, instead of judging their peer, just perhaps to ask them, can you remember a time that you felt that way? Now, this is teaching them empathy, to be able to step into someone else's shoes. So to connect with how that person feels by remembering a time that perhaps they felt that way. And then we try and keep it really simple with compassion, so it doesn't become a waffly sort of feeling thing, which is not very tangible for kids to work with, but just letting them know it can be as simple as, what can you do to help? So how can I help? So turning it into an action rather than making it too difficult for them. So this is just a nice little teaching and a perspective that we can get them to adapt. I love this laughing game. It has a huge amount of neuroscience and behind it, but it is the funniest game, and it helps children recognize that the emotions they are expressing affect each other. I'm sure a few of you may have done it. There is a laughing yoga, or a few contexts you may have used this. Great game for adults as well. So in this case, you have one person in the group starting off and leading it, and then everyone can follow, or the kids can take turns. And the idea is to go through different types of laughs. We go into it in more detail in the course. But when you are in a room of other people laughing, it is really hard not to laugh as well. So it makes children realize that their emotion actually can ripple out and affect others, and the emotion of others affects them as well. And so they start to take responsibility or ownership for the emotions that they're expressing, or for how they're showing up in the world. And just allowing that and noticing, you can see as kids do this, everyone's really making a lot of eye contact, and they start to recognize the humanity in the other children. They're all connected, and how what they do can affect others and vice versa. So really encourage you to give that a game. You can you can do that at home, just with your own children, just trying a few different laughs together. It is fun. It's a bit awkward at first, and then it becomes quite hilarious. Now, the other, I said I'd give you 4, and the fourth thing that we do with children is so we've done attention, balance, connection. The fourth thing is perspective taking. So the ability to look at the world with a broader perspective, and what I like to think of is to have a filter of optimism. Obviously, we work with gratitude to help cultivate this, but lots of little stories as well. Stories that are a great way to engage with humans, young and old, because when we're in that listening mode, in that story mode, we can take on new learnings and create new neural pathways, and start to cultivate understanding ourselves rather than just being simply taught something. So this story here, The Children and the Elephant, is one of the stories we use. So there once were 3 children who'd never seen an elephant. One morning, they're lucky enough to be taken to a safari to meet an elephant. The elephant was very shy and didn't like the children looking at him. So the children were blindfolded and could only experience the elephant by touching him. How excited they were at last to touch a real elephant. What would the elephant feel like? They had no idea. The first happened to put his hand on the elephant's trunk. Well, he said, now I know all about this elephant. He is exactly like a snake. The second felt only the elephant's ear. Don't be silly, he said. You are wrong. It's not like a snake. It's more like a huge fan than anything else. The third happened to take hold of the elephant's tail, but you are all wrong, he said. Anyone who knows anything can feel that this elephant is just like a rope. Afterwards, the 3 children argued with each other about what the elephant looked like. Instead of having a fun day, they're all angry with each other and called each other names because they did not agree. They didn't feel like they were friends anymore. They were sad. the next day before they went home, someone showed the children a photo of the elephant. Slowly they began to laugh. And we use this simple story just to help children recognise that oftentimes there's no right or wrong when people are sharing perspectives. Oftentimes it takes a look at all the perspectives to get the real picture of what's happening. And you probably all know yourselves many storybooks and stories that we can use with kids to actually help them develop this broader perspective and deeper understanding on life. So stories are a really great way of helping to engage and grow children's sense of their place in the world, and also to sort of start cultivating a more mature approach to life.